Part 1. The emergency beacon pierced through the static like a scream. Jake Morrison sat upright in his chair at monitoring Station 7, his coffee forgotten as the signal cut through every other frequency. Out here on the edge of human space, 3 months from the nearest colony, distress calls meant one thing. Someone was dying. He pulled up the coordinates and his blood went cold. The signal originated from the disputed zone, the razor-thin strip of space where humanity and the Krell Empire had drawn their uneasy border after 12 years of brutal war. The ceasefire was only 6 months old. The bodies were still warm. Jake's fingers hovered over the communications panel. Protocol was clear. Any vessel in the disputed zone was to be reported to Earth Command immediately. No exceptions, no interventions. The treaty forbade it. Breaking that rule could restart a war that had already killed 40 million humans. The beacon pulsed again. Whoever was out there had maybe an hour of life support left. He checked the scanner readings. One small craft, heavily damaged venting atmosphere. The ship's signature came back as Krell. His hand moved to the alert button, but something made him stop. He zoomed in the visual feed and saw the vessel tumbling slowly through the void, trailing debris and frozen oxygen crystals. It was a scout ship, unarmed, the kind used for scientific surveys. Jake had lost his brother to the Krell. He had watched the footage of the bombardment of New Terra. He had every reason to let that ship die in the darkness. The beacon screamed again. He slammed his fist on the console and made his choice. His station had a small rescue shuttle, barely big enough for 2 people, designed for emergency evacuations. He scrambled into his pressure suit and ran to the hangar bay. Every second mattered. Every second brought that Krell closer to death. The shuttle launched with a shudder, its thrusters burning hard toward the coordinates. Jake pushed the engines beyond their safety limits. The hull groaned in protest, but he did not slow down. Through the viewport, he saw the crippled Krell ship growing larger, spinning end over end like a broken toy. He matched the rotation and extended the docking clamp. Metal shrieked against metal as he forced the connection. The shuttle's computer screamed warnings about hull integrity and atmospheric contamination, but Jake overrode them all. He cycled the airlock and stepped into the Krell ship. The interior was a nightmare. Emergency lights flickered across walls scorched black by electrical fires. The air was thin and tasted like burned plastic. Jake moved through the cramped corridor, stepping over debris until he found the pilot chamber. A Krell warrior lay strapped into the command seat, its 4 arms hanging limp, its chitinous chestplate cracked and leaking blue-green blood. The alien's compound eyes were dim, barely reflecting the emergency lights. This was the enemy. This was the species that had turned human colonies into ash. Jake knelt beside the dying creature and checked for vital signs. The Krell's breathing was shallow, its body temperature dropping fast. He had maybe 20 minutes to get it back to the station and into a medical pod. He cut the restraints and lifted the warrior. The Krell was lighter than he expected, its exoskeleton hollow and efficient. Jake carried it back to his shuttle and laid it carefully on the floor. He sealed the airlocks and fired the thrusters for home. The station's medical bay had one universal treatment pod designed to handle multiple species biochemistries. Jake placed the Krell inside and let the automated systems take over. Scanners mapped the alien's physiology, synthesized medications, began repairing the internal damage. As the pod hummed to life, Jake stepped back and realized what he had done. He had saved a Krell. He had violated the treaty. He had potentially started another war. The communications panel blinked. Long-range sensors had detected something. Multiple contacts coming fast from Krell space. Big contacts. Jake pulled up the display and counted 15 warships. The Krell Armada was 3 hours away and closing on his position. They had come for their lost warrior. He looked at the medical pod where the unconscious alien lay suspended in healing gel. One act of compassion had brought an entire fleet to his door. Now he had to decide whether to run or stand his ground. Part 2, Jake's hands moved across the console, his mind racing through impossible options. The station had no weapons, no shields, nothing that could stand against even a single Krell warship, let alone 15. The emergency shuttle could barely make it to the nearest jump point before the Armada arrived, but leaving meant abandoning the injured Krell to die when the station's automated systems shut down. He pulled up the tactical display. The Krell formation was tight, moving with military precision. These were not explorers or diplomats. These were battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, ships designed to break worlds. Their weapons could turn his station into vapor in seconds. The radio crackled. A harsh clicking voice cut through the static, speaking in heavily accented human standard. Human station. This is War Commander Throck of the Krell Imperial Fleet. We detect our missing scout. Prepare to be boarded. Jake's throat went dry. Boarding meant inspection. It meant they would see he had saved their warrior. It also meant they would be close enough to see he was alone, vulnerable, completely at their mercy. He keyed the transmitter with shaking hands. "This is Station Chief Jake Morrison. I have your scout aboard. The pilot is injured but stable. I pulled them from a damaged ship in the disputed zone." Silence stretched for 30 seconds. Jake could imagine the confusion aboard the Krell flagship, a human saving a Krell. It made no sense. It violated everything both species knew about each other. "You saved our warrior?" The voice sounded suspicious, dangerous. "Yes." "I have them in medical treatment now." More silence. The Armada continued its approach, not slowing, not changing course. Jake watched the countdown timer. 2 hours and 40 minutes until they arrived. He checked the medical pod. The Krell's vital signs were strengthening, but the warrior would not wake for at least another 6 hours. The healing process could not be rushed. Jake sent a coded message to Earth Command, detailing everything. The rescue, the approaching fleet, his violation of treaty protocols. He did not expect a response in time. He did not expect rescue. He just wanted someone to know what happened here, in case it mattered later. The station felt enormous and empty around him. It was designed for a crew of 20, but budget cuts and the post-war drawdown had left it manned by one person. Just Jake alone with his equipment and his conscience, and now an unconscious alien that might get him killed. He spent the next hour preparing. He downloaded all the station's data to a portable drive and placed it in the emergency beacon pod. If the Krell destroyed everything, at least the information would survive. He recorded a message for his family, told them he loved them, tried to explain why he had made his choice. He set the medical pod to continue treatment, even if main power failed. Then he waited. The Krell Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at exactly the predicted moment. 15 massive ships materialized in a sphere around his tiny station, their hulls dark and angular, covered in weapons ports and sensor arrays. Jake had seen Krell warships before, in combat footage and intelligence briefings, but never this close, never surrounding him with nowhere to run. The lead dreadnought moved closer until it filled his viewport. The ship was 3 kilometers long, bristling with railguns and missile batteries. One of its weapons emplacements was larger than his entire station. "We are coming aboard, human. Do not resist. Do not interfere." A boarding tube extended from the dreadnought's hull and clamped onto Station 7's main airlock. Jake heard the magnetic seals engage with a deep thud that resonated through the deck plates. He stood in the central corridor, unarmed, waiting. The airlock cycled open. 6 Krell warriors entered, each one massive, their exoskeletons gleaming under the station lights. They moved with fluid grace despite their size, their forearms holding weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their compound eyes tracked every detail, missing nothing. The lead warrior was larger than the others, with additional armor plates and command insignia etched into its carapace. This was War Commander Throck. The Krell stopped 3 meters from Jake and studied him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Where is Scout Pilot Vex?" The commander's voice was like gravel grinding against metal. Jake gestured toward the medical bay. "This way. They are still unconscious, but the treatment is working." The warriors followed him, their weapons trained on his back. Jake tried not to think about how easily those guns could cut him in half. He led them to the medical pod and stepped aside. Commander Throck approached the transparent chamber where the injured scout lay suspended in healing gel. The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound Jake could not interpret. The other warriors gathered around, their weapons lowering slightly. One of them placed a hand on the pod's surface, an oddly gentle gesture. "You did this." It was not a question. Throck turned to face Jake directly. "You violated your treaty. You risked war. For one Krell life." Jake met the alien's multifaceted gaze. They were dying. "I could help. So I did. We are your enemy. We have killed millions of your kind. I know. My brother died in the war. New Terra was his home." The warriors went very still. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Throck's hand moved to his weapon. "Then why? Why save Vex?" Jake took a breath. This was the moment. This was where he lived, or died. Because the war is over, because if we keep seeing each other as enemies forever, nothing changes. Because someone had to stop hating first. Throck made a sound like steam escaping from a broken valve. The other warriors clicked their mandibles in what might have been surprise or confusion. The commander circled Jake slowly, studying him from every angle. You are either the bravest human I have encountered, or the most foolish. Probably both, Jake admitted. The commander stopped circling. His weapon remained holstered. Scout pilot Vex is from the primary nest of the Krell Empire. They are sibling clutch to the Empress herself. When Vex did not return, the Empress sent us with orders to retrieve them at any cost. We expected to find a wreck. We expected to punish whoever was responsible for their death. Jake's legs felt weak. He had saved royalty without knowing it. The implications crashed over him like a wave. If Vex had died, the Krell would have blamed humanity. The war would have restarted over accident. Instead, Throck continued, we find a human who gave up safety, violated his own laws, and risked everything to preserve a Krell life. The commander's tone shifted, became less hostile. This is unprecedented. This is not warrior behavior. This is something else. It is just the right thing to do, Jake said quietly. Throck turned to his warriors and spoke in rapid Krell, a cascade of clicks and buzzes. The warriors responded, their weapons now holstered entirely. The commander faced Jake again. You have created a problem, human Jake Morrison. A problem that requires the Empress herself to resolve. You will come with us. Part 3, the Krell Dreadnought's interior was nothing like Jake had imagined. He had expected cold metal corridors and harsh lighting, the sterile functionality of a warship. Instead, the walls were etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the light, organic curves that flowed like water frozen in metal. The air was humid and smelled faintly of minerals, carefully calibrated for Krell physiology but not unbearable for a human. Commander Throck led him through passages wide enough for 3 Krell to walk side by side. They passed dozens of warriors who stopped to stare at the human in their midst. Jake could feel the weight of their compound eyes tracking his every movement. None showed aggression, but none showed welcome either. He was an anomaly, a puzzle they could not solve. They reached a chamber larger than his entire station. Curved screens displayed star charts and tactical data in Krell script. At the center stood a crystalline tank filled with shimmering liquid. Inside floated scout pilot Vex, now transferred from Jake's medical pod to this more advanced system. The injured Krell's color had improved, the cracks in their carapace already beginning to seal. We have integrated your medical data, Throck explained. Your treatment was crude but effective. Vex will recover fully within 3 cycles. Jake approached the tank carefully. I was not sure if I used the right protocols. You did not, Throck said flatly. You improvised. You adapted. The way he said it sounded almost like respect. A new Krell entered the chamber, smaller than the warriors but moving with an authority that made everyone straighten. Her carapace was adorned with jewels that caught the light like stars. Her compound eyes were a deeper blue than the others, ancient and knowing. This is High Chancellor Mora, Throck announced, his voice formal. Voice of the Empress, keeper of the primary nest protocols. Mora circled Jake slowly, studying him with an intensity that made Throck's earlier examination seem casual. She clicked her mandibles in complex patterns. A translator device on her chest piece converted the sounds to human standard. You are the one who saved the Empress's sibling clutch. Yes, Chancellor. Do you understand the magnitude of what you have done? Not just the rescue, but the implications? Jake chose his words carefully. I am starting to. Mora gestured to the screens around them. Images appeared, footage from the war. Human ships burning, Krell hive cities collapsing under orbital bombardment, the bodies of both species floating in the void. For 12 years we killed each other. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sides believed the other was irredeemable. She changed the display. Now it showed the treaty signing, the careful negotiations, the fragile peace built on mutual exhaustion rather than understanding. The ceasefire exists because neither side could afford to continue fighting. Not because we stopped hating, not because we forgave. We simply ran out of resources and will. Mora turned to face him directly. Tell me, human, why did you not let Vex die? Revenge would have been easy. Natural. Jake had thought about this question during the long hours waiting for the Armada to arrive. Because revenge is not the same as justice. Because my brother would not have wanted his death to cause more death. Because I looked at that dying pilot and saw someone who wanted to live. Just like I want to live. The war took enough from both of us. Mora's mandibles clicked rapidly. You speak as though you believe peace is possible. I think it has to be. Otherwise, what was the point of any of it? The Chancellor moved to the medical tank and placed one hand against the crystal. Vex was conducting a mineral survey when their ship malfunctioned. A simple accident in a random sector of space. They sent a distress call knowing no Krell vessel was close enough to respond. They prepared to die alone in the dark. She turned back to Jake. The Empress felt Vex's distress through the nest bond. She felt her siblings' fear, their acceptance of death. Then she felt something impossible. She felt Vex's life force strengthen. She felt them being saved by a human. Jake's mind reeled. The Krell have telepathic abilities? Within Clutch families, yes. The bond is strong. The Empress experienced your rescue through Vex's fading consciousness. She felt your hands lifting Vex from the wreckage. She felt your determination to save a life, even an enemy life. Mora gestured and the screens changed again. This time they showed the Krell homeworld, a planet of vast oceans and towering hive cities that rose like mountains from the water. At the center of the largest city stood a palace that gleamed with an inner light. The Empress has made a decision. You are to be brought before the Grand Nest. You will meet her personally. This has never happened before. No human has ever stood in the presence of our leader. Why? Jake asked. I just did what anyone should do. That is precisely why, Throck interjected. What you consider basic decency, we consider revolutionary. You had every reason to hate, every justification to let Vex die, yet you chose differently. Mora's translator crackled slightly as she spoke again. The Empress believes you may be the key to something greater than a simple ceasefire. She believes you represent a possibility neither species has dared to consider. True peace, not just the absence of war, but actual cooperation. Jake felt the weight of impossibility settling on his shoulders. I am just one person. I run a monitoring station. I am not a diplomat or a representative. Earth Command probably wants to court-martial me for violating the treaty. Your command structure is irrelevant, Mora said. You acted alone. You made a choice that transcends politics and military strategy. That is why it matters. The dreadnought shuddered slightly as it changed course. Through the viewport, Jake could see the other ships of the Armada adjusting their formation. They were accelerating, moving away from human space and deeper into Krell territory. How long until we reach your homeworld? He asked. 6 cycles at maximum, faster than light, Trock answered. You will be given quarters, food suitable for your biology, and time to prepare. The Empress will want to speak with you at length. Mora added, there will be others who do not share the Empress's vision. War Commander Grak lost 3 Clutch siblings to human weapons. High Minister Zek believes your species is incapable of change. They will question you. They will test your sincerity. Some may wish you harm. Are you saying I am in danger? You have been in danger since the moment you chose to save Vex, Mora said. But you also have the Empress's protection. While you are under her decree, no Krell may harm you without facing her wrath. That is law. A warrior entered and spoke rapidly in Krell. Throck listened and nodded. Your quarters are ready. Come. Jake followed the commander down more corridors, past more staring warriors, until they reached a chamber that had clearly been hastily modified for human habitation. The humidity was lower here, the temperature cooler. There was a sleeping platform, a food dispenser with human meal options downloaded from Earth databases, and a viewport looking out at the stars. Rest, Throck said. You will need your strength. What comes next will determine the future of both our species. The door sealed behind him and Jake was alone. He sat on the sleeping platform and looked out at the streaking stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, everything he knew. He was traveling in the opposite direction, into the heart of what had been enemy territory just hours ago. He thought about his brother, about all the lives lost in the war. He thought about Vex, unconscious in the medical tank, alive because he had made one choice in one moment. He thought about the Empress, a being he had never met, who apparently believed one act of compassion could change everything. Jake had no idea if she was right. He had no idea what would happen when they reached the Krell homeworld. He only knew that he could not have made a different choice. Letting Vex die would have been easier, safer, but it would have been wrong. He lay back and tried to sleep, but his mind kept racing. In 6 days he would stand before the leader of humanity's greatest enemy. In 6 days he would discover if mercy could truly build a bridge across a galaxy of hate. The stars streaked past, indifferent to the fate of one human caught between war and peace. Part 4, Jake woke to the sound of his door chiming. He sat up, disoriented, his internal clock completely scrambled by ship's time and the stress of the last 20 hours. The chime sounded again, polite but insistent. Come in, he called. The door opened and a young Krell entered, smaller than the warriors, their carapace a lighter shade of green. They carried a tray with something that steamed and smelled surprisingly appetizing. I am Attendant Kier, the Krell said through a translator pendant. I have brought first meal. The food synthesizers have approximated human nutrition requirements. Jake took the tray carefully. The food looked like a cross between oatmeal and rice, studded with what might have been vegetables. He tasted it cautiously. Not bad, actually. A little bland, but edible. Thank you, Kier. The young Krell hesitated at the door, their mandibles twitching. May I ask question? Of course. Why did you save Scout Pilot Vex? I have read the reports, but I do not understand. Humans and Krell have been enemies for my entire life cycle. The education programs teach us that humans are aggressive, territorial, incapable of empathy for other species. Jake set down the tray. What do your education programs teach about why the war started? Kier's eyes shifted colors slightly, a sign of discomfort Jake was learning to recognize. They teach that humans attacked our colony ships without provocation, that you saw our expansion as a threat and chose violence. And our education programs teach that Krell warships fired first, that you were the aggressors, that we were defending ourselves. Jake shook his head. Both sides have their version of history. Both sides believe they are right. But I was not there when it started. Neither were you. We are just living with the consequences. But you are still human. Vex is still Krell. How did you see past that? Jake thought about it. That is all. Not a Krell, not an enemy. As someone who needed help. If our positions were reversed, if I was the one dying in space, would you have saved me? Kier was quiet for a long moment. Before yesterday, I would have said no. Now I am not certain. You have created confusion in the fleet. Many warriors speak of you. Some with anger, some with curiosity. All with uncertainty. Uncertainty is better than hate, Jake said. Uncertainty means there is room for things to change. Kier left and Jake finished his meal. He spent the next hour exploring his quarters, examining the Krell technology, trying to learn anything he could about the species he was now completely dependent on. The computer system had limited human interface, but he managed to access some basic information about Krell culture. The nest structure fascinated him. Krell society was built around extended family units called clutches, with the Empress at the center of the largest and most powerful nest. Loyalty to Clutch came before individual identity. When Vex was in danger, it was not just one Krell at risk, but an affront to the entire Imperial family. He understood now why the Armada had come so fast, so ready for war. He also understood why his rescue had created such turmoil. He had not just saved a life. He had honored a bond the Krell held sacred. The door chimed again. This time it was Commander Throck, his armored bulk filling the doorframe. High Chancellor Mora requests your presence. There is something you must see. Jake followed the commander to a different section of the ship. They entered a vast chamber filled with communication equipment and holographic displays. Dozens of Krell worked at stations, their forearms moving in coordinated patterns across controls. Mora stood at the center, watching a large screen that showed a human face. Jake recognized the uniform. Earth Command. Admiral rank. We have been monitoring your communications, Mora said without preamble. Your military leaders are demanding your return. They threaten consequences if you are not released immediately. Jake moved closer to the screen. The Admiral was mid-sentence, his face red with anger. Violation of treaty protocols will result in immediate military action. We will not tolerate the abduction of our citizens. They think you took me prisoner, Jake said. We have sent messages explaining the situation, but they do not believe us. They think this is a Krell trick. Mora gestured to another screen showing tactical displays. 3 human battle groups are mobilizing near the border. Your species is preparing for war. Jake's stomach dropped. Let me talk to them. Let me explain. Mora considered this. Very well. But understand, if your leaders demand actions we cannot accept, this fragile situation will collapse. The Empress's protection extends only so far. The communication channel opened. The Admiral's face filled the screen, his expression shifting from anger to shock when he saw Jake standing among the Krell. Morrison, is that you? Yes, sir, Admiral Chen. I am unharmed. I am here voluntarily. Voluntarily? Morrison, you are on a Krell dreadnought surrounded by their entire battle fleet. What are you talking about? Jake took a breath and explained everything. The rescue, the Armada's arrival, the revelation about Vex's identity, the Empress's invitation. Admiral Chen listened, his expression moving from disbelief to concern to something Jake could not quite identify. Son, do you have any idea what you have done? You violated the treaty. You have created an interstellar incident. We have reports of Krell ships massing at the border. The Council thinks this is the start of another invasion. It is not an invasion, sir. They came for their injured pilot. They are taking me to their homeworld to meet the Empress. This could be an opportunity. An opportunity? The Admiral's voice rose. Morrison, you are not a diplomat. You are a monitoring station operator who made an unauthorized decision that could restart the war. We are ordering you to demand immediate release and return to human space. I cannot do that, sir. Silence on the channel. Admiral Chen's face went very still. Repeat that. I said I cannot do that. I chose to save Vex. I chose to accept the Empress's invitation. I am seeing this through. That is not a request, Morrison. That is a direct order from Earth Command. Jake glanced at Mora and Throck, both watching him carefully. He thought about Vex in the medical tank, about Kier's questions, about the possibility of something better than endless hatred. With respect, sir, I am refusing that order. I am not a prisoner. I am a guest. And I believe this is important, more important than protocol or chain of command. The Empress wants to talk about real peace. That is worth the risk. Admiral Chen looked like he might have a stroke. Morrison, you're committing career suicide. Possibly actual suicide. I am ordering the fleet to hold position, but if you are harmed, if this is some kind of Krell deception, we will respond with overwhelming force. I understand, sir, but I need you to trust me. I need Earth Command to stand down and let this play out. The Admiral was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less formal. Your brother, Marcus. He was my communications officer on the new Terra defense platform. I was there when we lost him. I know what the Krell cost you. Jake felt his throat tighten. Then you know I am not doing this lightly. No, I suppose you are not. Admiral Chen sighed. I will advocate for patience with the Council. But Morrison, you are on your own out there. If this goes wrong, we cannot protect you. Do you understand? Yes, sir, I do. The channel closed. Jake found himself shaking slightly, the weight of what he had just done settling on him. He had defied Earth Command. He had chosen the Krell over his own chain of command. Mora's mandibles clicked softly. That was either very brave or very stupid. Someone told me I am probably both, Jake said, glancing at Throck. The commander made that steam hissing sound that might have been laughter. You continue to surprise, human. Come. There are others you should meet before we reach the homeworld. Not everyone in the fleet shares the Empress's optimism about your presence. They walked through more corridors until they reached a training hall where Krell warriors practiced combat maneuvers. The warriors stopped when Jake entered, their weapons lowering as they stared at the human in their midst. One Krell, larger and more scarred than the others, stepped forward. His carapace was dark, almost black, etched with symbols Jake did not recognize. His compound eyes held something cold and hostile. So this is the human who thinks one act of kindness erases 12 years of slaughter. The Krell's voice was harsh even through the translator. I am War Commander Grak. Your species killed my clutch siblings. 3 of them. Do you expect me to forgive because you saved one Krell? Jake met the warrior's gaze steadily. No, I do not expect forgiveness. I do not expect anything. I just made a choice to save a life instead of letting hate make my decisions for me. Grak moved closer, looming over him. Pretty words. But words are easy. Actions matter. And the actions of your species speak clearly. You are killers. Destroyers. You cannot be trusted. And your species is different? Jake kept his voice calm. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sides have blood on their hands. If we keep score forever, the killing never stops. Then perhaps it should not stop, Grak said. Perhaps the only peace possible is when one species is extinct. The other warriors shifted uncomfortably. Throck moved forward, but Jake raised a hand, stopping him. If you believe that, Jake said to Grak, then the war has already beaten you. It has turned you into exactly what you hate. My brother died fighting Krell. I could hate you all. I could spend my life wanting revenge. But that would just make me another casualty of the war, just in a different way. Grak's mandibles clicked in what sounded like contempt. Weakness, maybe. Or maybe it is the only real strength left. The strength to choose something different. The war commander stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. We will see, human. We will see if your philosophy survives when you are truly tested. The homeworld is not kind to outsiders, especially human outsiders. As Grak walked away, Throck spoke quietly. He lost his entire clutch in one battle. The grief has consumed him. He is not alone in his anger. Jake watched the hostile commander disappear into the training groups. I know, but anger is not a good enough reason to keep fighting forever. No, Morris said, appearing beside them. It is not. Which is why the Empress believes you may be the catalyst we need. Someone who chooses peace not from weakness or exhaustion, but from genuine conviction. I am just one person, Jake said again. All change begins with one person, Mora replied.
One choice.
One moment. You have already proven that. Now we will see if your moment can become a movement. Part 5, the Krell homeworld appeared in the viewport like a blue jewel wrapped in silver clouds. 3 moons orbited in perfect synchronization, their surfaces dotted with what Jake realized were more cities, more hive structures reaching toward space. The planet was more developed than Earth, its oceans crisscrossed with massive floating platforms and underwater installations that glowed with bioluminescent light. Jake stood in the observation deck, watching as the dreadnought descended through the upper atmosphere. The other ships of the Armada peeled away in formation, heading to various orbital positions. Only the flagship continued down toward the surface. Beautiful, is it not? Kier had appeared beside him, the young attendant apparently assigned to help Jake navigate the complexities ahead. I never imagined I would see it, Jake admitted. During the war, this planet was the target, the place we were supposed to strike if we ever got the chance. Now I am landing as a guest. Strange how fate works, Kier said. My clutch parent was killed in a human orbital bombardment of our mining colony on Threshold 4. For years I trained to fight humans to avenge the death. Then the ceasefire came and my purpose vanished. I did not know what to do with all that anger and nowhere to direct it. Jake looked at the young Krell. What did you do? I became an attendant. I chose to serve the diplomatic corps instead of the military. I decided that building something was better than destroying things. Ker's mandibles clicked softly. Not everyone understood. Some called me a coward, but I would rather be a living coward than a dead warrior. The ship touched down on a massive landing platform surrounded by towering hive structures. Through the viewport, Jake could see thousands of Krell gathered, held back by ceremonial guards. Some held banners, others appeared to be chanting, though he could not hear them through the hull. They know about you, Kier said. Word spread fast. The human who saved Imperial Clutch. Some see you as a symbol of hope. Others as an insult to all those who died in the war. Which are you? Jake asked. Kier's eyes shifted colors. I have not decided yet, but I am willing to find out. Commander Throck entered the observation deck, his armor polished to a mirror shine. It is time. The Empress waits. Remember, speak with respect, but honesty.
She values truth over flattery. Do not look away from her gaze, as that signals deception in our culture.
And, whatever happens, trust that you are under her protection. Jake followed Throck down the main ramp. The moment his feet touched the platform, a sound rose from the gathered crowd. Not quite a cheer, not quite a protest, but something in between. A wave of noise that held curiosity and fear and wonder all mixed together. The ceremonial guards formed a corridor, their weapons held at attention. Jake walked between them, very aware that each guard could kill him in seconds if they chose. The crowd pressed against the barriers, thousands of compound eyes watching his every step. They entered the largest hive structure through doors that must have been 50 meters tall. The interior was breathtaking. Vast chambers rose in spirals toward a central dome covered in what looked like living crystal. Light filtered through in patterns that shifted and changed, creating an ever-moving display of colors across the walls. At the center of the grand chamber, on a platform surrounded by flowing water, sat the Empress. She was smaller than Jake expected.